the things that we do in the water section are to make sure that we have plans to conserve water. In fact, conserving water or plans to conserve water is codified in state code in chapter 73. It's where it says that a written document that contains existing and proposed water conservation measures describing what will be done by a water provider and the end user of culinary water to help conserve water in the state in terms of per capita use of water provided through culinary water infrastructure owned and operated by water providers so that adequate supplies of water are available for future needs. So that's my purpose to come to you today and to review our proposed update of the city's water conservation plan. We've had a plan in place for many years, but we need to update that plan at least every 5 years. Part of the update process is that we take the plan and submit it to the Division of Water Resources. They review it to make sure that it complies with what's required by the state code in chapter 73. And we did that earlier this year. They reviewed it. We have made some modifications and changes based on their recommendations and have finalized that plan and are ready to present it to you. Now, the outline of my presentation is fairly straightforward. We'll do a brief outline of or description of the water utility. Many of you are already familiar with what we do, so this won't, a lot of this won't be new, but for the benefit of the public, I just want to talk about some of the basics. We'll talk about some of the historic and future water needs, some of the water challenges and goals that we've set for the future, and also discuss some of the current and ongoing conservation practices. So this, of course, is a map of the city, which is required in the plan to show an area, the water service area. We have three sources of water in Orem. We have surface water, which is water from Deer Creek Reservoir as well as Jordanelle. We also have a couple of springs, the Alta Springs and Canyon Springs. We took the city council earlier this summer on a trip up to see the Alta Springs. So that's the water that comes out of the mountain and is a good source, good reliable source for us, a historic source. We also have wells. You can see on this graph that during the summer months, we rely heavily on our storage water that we have in Deer Creek and in Jordanelle, and also pump more out of our wells to meet the demands that we have during the summer months. This particular graph shows what our water use has been on a monthly basis between 2007 and 2022. The low points are, of course, the winter months when it's indoor use, and then the peaks are the primarily outdoor use, watering our lawns and things like that. We'll get into some more interesting graphs that show what our trends have been in recent years later in the presentation, but you can kind of see that back in 2019 or 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, that we are trending downward. Conservation efforts are working, but we'll get into more details. The purpose of this slide is just to show how there's a dramatic shift in water use throughout the year. Another interesting aspect about our utility is the meter types and sizes that we have. 3/4 inches is a standard residential unit meter size. We have 3/4 inch all the way to 12-inch meters. We have 23,530 services that provide water to our citizens. Now, this is where we get into what has conservation done over the past in the recent past. Well, if you look at our water consumption, which is based on production, how much do we produce at our springs? Plus, how much do we produce or use from our surface water? Plus, how much do we use from our wells? You add those three numbers up, divide it by the population, and you get your per capita consumption. You can see that back in 2012, we exceeded over 290 gallons per person per day. That's a lot of water. And you can see that over the years how it trends. It goes down and up and down and up. But overall, you can see that from 2012 until 2021, there's an overall decrease of about 6.5 gallons per person per day.
Is that water I use on my shrubbery and grass and everywhere else, washing machine everywhere?
That's correct.
Yeah. And do you know any idea, like in the winter when we're not watering plants, do you know what percentage of our consumption is inside the house versus outside the house?
Yeah, I'll get to a slide that'll show that to you. So
there you go.
Here it is.
Just when you told me that.
That's right. So this shows what our winter use has been and what our summer use has been in the total. This just compares 2020 with 2021. Now 2021 was when the state really got serious about, hey, this is a drought situation. We need everybody to step up. We as a city took efforts. That there was a collaborative effort amongst, I think, the entire state to really really highlight the importance of water conservation, how we need to change our habits in order to ensure that we have a long-term supply. So you can see that from 2020 to 2021, we had a 15.4% drop in water consumption during the winter and a 15.9% drop during the summer for a total of 15.8. You can see we produced 9.2 billion gallons in 2020 and 7.8 billion gallons in 2021. Now we had the capability of producing more. We could have pulled more water from Deer Creek or pumped more water out of our wells, but we didn't need to because the demand wasn't there. This shows the same chart, or the same data from January to December. Where you see blue, that means we used more in 2020. The red is 2021. So that graphically shows how much conservation occurred. It's quite impressive in my opinion.
Reed,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but there's a spike right at the end of the year.
Right here.
Yeah, is that just a holiday spike or?
Yeah, I would have to ask Quinn what his theories are. We like to blame Super Bowl Sunday and things like that.
Is that in December? I can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
We might have more people in on.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
last 15 days of the year.
And red is 2020?
Yeah, the blue is 2020, the red is 2021. And I hypothesized that these dips here were probably because of rain events that we had. People actually went out and turned off their sprinklers for a week. Great, that's what we want to have happen. So let's look just at the summer. We're zooming in on this area of the graph. So if we look just in the summer, from April to the end of September, you can see closer that in 2020, which is the blue, and 2021, which is the red, we see a lot of blue. That means we used less during 2021. Well, let's put the numbers for 2022 are fresh. So this is what 2022 looked like. Wherever you see red means we did better in 2021, which is, I'm sorry, 2020, we did better in 2022, which is green. So you can see we did really well in the spring all the way through July. Now, what does it look like behind that? But you can see, yeah, there were some times that we did better in 2021 than 2022, but it's not a marked difference.
And then it's a lot hotter, right? We had a pretty hot.
We did have a very hot summer this summer. So you can kind of see, just looking at the two of them side by side, things look good. So if we look at the table, oh, Chris.
Can you go back to that? There was, in August last year, we had some significant rains and the temperatures dropped, and it was unusual because we had an extremely hot June and July of 2021, but we had some flooding issues that occurred in August. And you'll notice on there, we had a high amount of rain, unusual amount of rain in August. And there's that dip that's reflected in 2021.
So what is the percentage? Well, earlier we looked at 2020 to 2021, and we dropped 15.8% overall and 15.9% from 2021 to 2022 summer. Well, if you look at 2020 and 2022, we're at an almost 20% drop from what we had in 2020. So
Read too, this isn't per capita, this is overall. So even with growth of homes, this is still a drop.
correct, yeah.
And Reed, at the beginning, you showed us the breakdown of the different types of water users. So this includes everything. This is businesses.
Yep. Yeah, this is what did we send into the system to be used by everybody. This gets to, this kind of a side conversation. We're guesstimating what the indoor use is, particularly during the summer. We base it on winter flows, but with the AMI project that we have going, which we'll discuss in a minute, we're going to be able to really zero in and be able to tell what's happening inside, what's the water demand for the entire community throughout the year. That'll be a great tool for us to have and help us manage water. So let's get to, now we're getting to the meat. What's the plan? What is Orem going to do to conserve water? In 2019, the Utah Division of Water Resources created what's called Utah's Regional M&I Water Conservation Goals. And their recommendations for the different regions throughout the state, there's 8 different regions, and they suggest municipalities, other water service providers should set goals, reasonable goals for each particular region. We're in the Provo River region, and this report suggests that we should have a 20% decrease by 2030. But we just saw that we had a 20% decrease in 2 years. Well, hopefully that continues because it'll be easy to meet our goal. We don't know if it's going to be a wet year. Will the attitude towards conservation shift or not? Hopefully not. But you can see that this report recommends by 2030 to have a 20% decrease in water consumption or the per capita use, 27% by 2040, and then 32% by 2065. This plan is focused on the reduction of the 20% decrease by 2030. So what we've done is we've looked at our actual, let me back up. This report uses 2015 as the base year. This report was completed in 2019, but they said, go back and look at what your use was in 2015, and then make your plans or set that as your baseline, and then try to get the 20% based on that particular per capita use in 2015. So we went back and looked. You can see that the actual in 2015 was 242.4, and then it jumped up to 256.7. You'll remember a previous slide that showed that in 2012 we were at 290. It's really volatile when you look at every single year. So what we've done is we've tried to soften that out and look at the 5-year rolling average. We went back to 2000. We got the numbers from 2011, 2012, 13, 14, and 15. Came up with the average, and that became our baseline. So our baseline is right here. It's the green line. It's 261.5 gallons per capita per day. That's what our average was in 2015. So our goal is 20% reduction from the 261.5. So we want to get to 209.1 with that rolling average. You can see the rolling average we started at 261.5. The next year was 263.3. So we weren't meeting it because we had probably a high number in 2013 or 14. But as we shift that, you can see that we're trending downward, and we're really, really close to the goal, the consumption goal that we have to meet the 209.1 in 2030. Here's the actual for 2021. Yeah, the 2021 was actually at 207. We're meeting that. Hopefully that continues. It could be that this trend line drops sharply and stays below where we want. we'll update the plan in 5 years and be able to report to the council exactly what our efforts and other efforts have done in order to focus on this reduction in water consumption. We're looking good. So we get to the goals of the plan. What do we as a utility want to do? How do we want to, how will we measure our success? What things do we need to do in order to make sure that conservation is happening? Well, the first thing is we want to reduce the city's water use to reflect the regional water conservation goals that we just talked about. We want to get down to that the rolling average of 209 gallons per capita per day by 2030. We're trending well to meet that. The next one is to maintain an effective conservation-oriented pricing structure each year. Last year, the City Council adopted the Water Master Plan with a rate structure that maintains that tiered system. That tiered system is what encourages water conservation. The third goal is to complete the meter replacement project by the end of 2022. That's what I was speaking to earlier. That will give us more information where we can better manage our water utility. We're all hands on deck right now trying to meet that goal. We have our water section out, the entire group out there replacing meters. We've got about 6,000 more meters that we hope that we need to get in by the end of the year, and we're determined to do it. And once we have it done, it'll be a great tool for the citizens. The fourth goal is to construct a tertiary treatment process at the water reclamation facility to produce water for irrigation by 2025. You guys would recognize this as the water reuse project, which has been reported recently. The mayor was influential in helping us to get additional funding through the county ARPA funds that were made available for water projects. That helped us to meet the inflationary pressures that we've all been feeling in order to move this project forward. By putting this in place, we'll be able to irrigate the golf course as well as Lakeside Sports Park and Springwater Park and the water reclamation facility with reuse water, keeping water up in the mountain, essentially using water twice. Goal number 5, to continue our education efforts regarding water conservation. We along with the media, use social media, city newsletters to help promote wise water use and conservation-minded efforts throughout the community. And the final goal is to replace all of our automatic sprinkler controllers at all of our city-owned properties to newer technology by 2025. We're actually making pretty good progress on this, and in fact, it wouldn't surprise me if we were done by 2023. Certainly, perhaps even 2024, but I gave us 2025 just to have a little bit of a cushion there, just in case.
Are those sprinklers that adjust to the weather?
That's right. Yeah, and it allows us to it adjusts to the weather. Every operator will have access to whatever parks they're assigned. They can get on and make sure things are functioning. It'll alert us if a valve gets stuck open and something waters. It's great technology, and will not only allow us to be more efficient, but wise stewards of the water that we have as well.
It seems like as much water as the city uses for all the parks, it'd be a pretty big deal to get that dialed in.
We have a third of it done right now. We just purchased the remaining 2/3 of the capital needs, and we hope to get those in the next year and a half. And also that's been funded in part by Central Utah Water Conservancy District through their water conservation program.
Okay.
And so
we're paying 50 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, nice.
Chris, does that include all of our significant park strips and some of those areas there?
Everything that we
Everything that we
maintain.
manage.
Yes, outside that we operate and maintain.
So also in the document, there's just short discussions on some of our current and ongoing conservation practices. There's a discussion on the water shortage management plan. what are we going to do in the event that we have a prolonged drought like we do, and we need to scale back water use? How are we going to do that? We've got a water management team with the city manager, public works director, assistant city manager, myself, a water section manager, who would make recommendations and on how we need to reach out to the public and request that they cut back. We have an advisory stage, mild stage, moderate, severe, and critical. Drought is what everyone thinks of. However, there's a chance that something happens at the treatment plant and in the middle of the summer, and it's going to be urgent that we do something. We would need to act quickly, and this water management team would be charged with acting on that. We could lose a major pipeline. Something could happen. We just don't know. That's why we call it a water shortage management plan and not a drought management plan. Other things that we do, we have a leak protection program. We have water mains and galvanized line service replacements that we do when they leak. Sometimes it takes us a while to find them, but we replace those as quick as possible. Improve efficiency, irrigating parks and open spaces, which we touched upon with the automatic sprinkler system that we talked about just a little bit ago. Our parks adjust irrigation practices during times of drought, and we suggest to the public that they do the same thing. Another practice that we have is our tiered water rates. When people know that they're going to pay more the more they use, they're more inclined to cut back on how much they use. We touched upon the automatic meter reading technology, the water reuse project that we have moving forward right now. Landscaping ordinance, the city council a couple years ago reduced the amount of green space that's required from 75% to 50%. There might be other ideas of things that, creative things that we could do in order to require or allow water conservation things. I don't know what those are, but as we learn more, we may, if you learn of things that might be good to codify, we could consider doing that. And then of course, public education, making the public aware of the importance of water conservation, and letting them know that what we don't pull out of the ground remains in the ground for us to use at another point. So that's the basics of the main parts of the water conservation plan. The next steps are that we need to formally present this to you at the meeting in November, and then we need to hold a public hearing as required by the state code. After the public hearing, we would ask the city council to adopt the plan, making it official. Then we would file it with the state, post it on our website, and work towards achieving the goals. So that's the presentation that I have. I'm happy to field any questions that you might have. Oh, I should add as well, we did send copies of this to the Public Works Advisory Committee, as well as the Natural Resources Stewardship Committee. So they have had their eyes on it. I've had some feedback from them. Nothing substantive enough that would require a drastic edit, but if there were any drastic edits to this document, I would make you aware of those when we formally present this to you during the regular session.
So when replacing the meters, we have 6,000 left. So are you able to do 10 a day, 20 a day?
Yeah, our goal is 200 a day,
200.
which with a crew of 15, that's about 12 to 13 a day. And some of them are easily able to do that. They've been doing it all along. Others are a little slower, they're learning. We're confident. There is a little bit of a buffer. We can continue to do it into springtime, but spring is when our plan is to activate this, but we want to have our goal is to have everything done by the end of the year. There is a little buffer that we can extend that a little further. However, I don't communicate that very broadly, except I just.
Have you had any problems replacing them, like any damage or anything like that? been reasonably clean.
Yeah, it's been clean. It's been smooth. There are some that are more challenging than others, but the older they are, the harder they are to replace.
We're talking about replacing, like, replace about 25,000 meters.
That's the total that we have. We've done about 17,000 to date. So
I think that goal 5 is great. I mean, we all drive around and see office buildings, commercial, city, you know, in a rainstorm where all the sprinklers are running. So I think that would be a wonderful thing. The only comment on goal number 2 about conservation-oriented water price structure, I have a concern about those folks on fixed income. And conservation, I fully support. And as I drive by Deer Creek and thought, ooh, that's so scary looking site right now. But I don't want, I'm concerned about us doing our conservation on the backs of people with fixed income and people that are not watering their lawns because they can't afford their water bill. So there's a trade-off somewhere where we're saying we're conserving water, but hopefully that's not because our fees keep going. And I know we tapped them for a short period of time. Now they're still going to start increasing again. Anyway, that's just a concern I have.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
So you did adopt with the rate structure this last year, an opportunity for them to receive a benefit from not only the city of Orem, but also through Utah County. And so there are resources that we've made available. And, you know, working with Dave Spencer on this, we were able to adopt that recently. And I think it was to the tune of around $200 or something like along those lines.
Yeah, I guess that's a step, but a lot of people have a lot of pride. They do not want to go and get some kind of government assistance on their utility bill because, you know, it's just, that's kind of tough.
But I think they're on fixed income. I think we need to point them in that direction. I think it's $300.
Yeah,
We increased it, I think.
yeah, we did increase it.
So that's about, you know, so that's helps from the bill, so it offsets the bill. So I think at least we're doing something, but I understand your concern about fixed income for sure.
And Mayor, Chris, would you mind sharing with Terry too what you told me about Deer Creek? Because I expressed the same reservations that, that Terry did about Deer Creek.
Deer Creek Reservoir is down about 45 feet, and it's around 30 to 40% of capacity right now. Jordanelle Reservoir is also down around 45 feet. However, there's a significant amount of water that should be stored in Deer Creek that we've elected to store in Jordanelle in anticipation of the Deer Creek intake project taking place to minimize, to reduce some safety concerns with additional head of additional water. That's going to happen all underwater through scuba and so forth. And so it's quite phenomenal how we're going to be addressing that, constructing that. But
That's good to know because I've never seen it that low.
It looks alarmingly low.
I've never seen it like that.
It was about that low in about, when did we do you mentioned
The
this the other
bridge,
day,
yeah.
with the bridge.
It wasn't
Was
as
that
low
about
as it is now, though.
4 or 5
I don't remember.
It was about that time. But so the nice thing is that we have 2 reservoirs in tandem where we have some flexibility to be able to do that. Albeit it looks a little bit alarming. With that said, Jordanelle would be down a lot lower if we had to put water from Deer Creek into Jordanelle.
So are we considering the businesses in Deer Creek too, in keeping that water in Jordanelle? That's probably affecting the marinas and the
it's
recreation there.
correct. Yeah. So it's primary drinking water source. And secondarily, it's for recreation and so forth. One of the ideas, in fact, there were like 3 or 4 bidders on the Deer Creek intake project. Of the 4, only 1 said that we should keep water in the reservoir. The other 3 said we need to drain the whole thing. And Provo Reservoir pushed back on that and said we need to look at this seriously. We went with the opportunity to keep the water in the reservoir as much as possible. So it's going to be
So Jordanelle was the solution then to keep it.
to work together.
Okay.
To work together with them.
How long that project going to take and what will be done?
Well, it's not advertised yet. We don't know what it's going to cost. The estimates are coming in around $95 million. That was presented maybe our last or two times ago in the session, of which we have about a 6% obligation, which is about $6 million. And that'll need to be paid over a period of about 20 years. Our obligation to the city will be about $300,000 to $400,000 additional above and beyond what we have for expenditure right now.
As far as the actual changing the intakes, whatever, how long does that take?
That'll take a couple of years,
So will it be that low for that long?
most likely, yeah. It'll be lower.
One thing I forgot to mention is there's also a $10 waiver on the bill for the water for those that are. Yeah, so at least that.
Is there a proportional, because I spoke with a gentleman who had like a 3rd acre lot, retired, fixed income gentleman, that could you proportionalize, someone, I mean, it's all gallons, I know, but is there anything to help people who want to maintain them nicer and have a larger property?
So it's a function of what their impact is to our water supply. And if they have a 3/4 inch meter, then everyone with a 3/4 inch has the same impact. In theory, 1 inch and so forth, there's a larger amount available. And for a larger water meter, for a larger lot, that might be a 1/2 acre or so, they probably would have a 1 inch meter where their allotment for water would be a little bit larger. And so their tiers, actual volumes in each tier increase. So you have 4 tiers and they would increase in volume.
Chris, let me make sure I understand, to our $10 waiver though.
Yeah,
No, that's not.
that's separate.
No, it's
that's
fixed,
yeah.
regardless, okay.
It's just on income.
Okay.
That was just.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
I should have brought that up when he was
No,
talking.
you're good.
We have around $300 of available dollars for those that have hardships, on an annual basis.
Plus $10 a month.
Yeah, and then that increased just this last
I
spring.
went from 200 to 300.
Right.
But then the $10 is off the bill monthly if you meet that requirement.
In terms of rebates also, I wanted to mention that any consumer can get a rebate if they choose to get a smart controller. I've done that on my property about 7 years ago or 6 years ago. It's managed through Central Utah Water Conservancy District. They'll give you a $100 rebate towards a smart controller. And the smart controllers, the lower end are around $70 or $80. The upper ones are maybe around $300, whatever. But they're effective.
You can change it
Yeah,
on your
perspective.
phone.
Sweet, you can, you have one.
I have one,
Okay, yeah.
pretty sweet.
Did you use it?
No,
You
I
have
was 6 months out of
Yeah.
the period to send this receipt.
I didn't get
I didn't get my receipt in on time.
Always miss a receipt.
Send a receipt in.
Can you get a retro?
What?
We love you.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Well, Mayor, that's the presentation. I'll bring this back to your attention and give an abbreviated form of it at the general session sometime in November, and look to having the city council adopt that, and we'll keep moving forward.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Great presentation.
Next up, we've got the Trails Master Plan with Matt Taylor. Can you do that?
Yeah, buy low, buy low, sale high.
I wonder if the other lakes I know is all fine and they're right.
Thank you, council, for having me with you today. I appreciate it. Opportunity to present this to you. This is an amendment to our Parks, Recreation, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan that we, in our Development Services Division or Department, will be recommending to you tonight. Several months ago, Vineyard City approached, their community development director approached us to discuss potential connections into their trail system from our Geneva Road multi-use path. One particular that they focused on was what they call the Lake Bottom Canal Trail. Yeah, that one. There's 3 we're talking about, so I have to sort through them. And but as we looked at the area, it made sense that we examined a few other multi-use path trail connections in our plan that were not covered in our most recent master plan update that was adopted by the council last December. We believe these connections are very valuable to the community. We'll talk about exactly what that means in a minute, but there's a lot of growth, as we know, in Vineyard, and UVU also will be expanding northward into Vineyard, as well as Vineyard trying to create their own new town center and many other parks and amenities, Utah Lake. Eventually, there's sections completed of the trail along the lake, but eventually that's planned to run all the way from, Provo Delta River project in the short term, in the next 10 years to Lehigh, and eventually the vision is for all the way around the lake. So creating trail connections between our city and through this area, we believe is an important asset for our residents, even though they don't live in Vineyard. It's an area of amenities that they benefit to be near and access. So what is a multi-use path? A multi-use path is defined by this bulleted list in the master plan. Essentially, in a nutshell, it's a separated path from the roadway, typically 10 feet wide, but in some cases can vary down to 8 feet if we were in constrained conditions. Ideally, it is separated by some type of soft shoulder on both sides, grass or other type of natural surface, and separated from the roadway in an ideal situation. Being a built-out city, we can't always meet the ideal, and so when we look at how to design and plan for these multi-use paths, sometimes we make compromises from the ideal. But multi-use paths are adaptable. These are just two design examples showing how the path can accommodate walkers and users, walkers and bikers, pedestrians and other types of non-motorized users on a path that is either separated, both the bikes and the pedestrians, or you put them together in some type of shared space.
Are they, is it the same level as the road?
The construction of the asphalt? Or- No, not typically.
Will
I
they
don't
be
know the
elevated?
details. What?
Will they, like, I guess I'm trying to think, is there's some kind of barrier to protect them from the traffic?
Yeah, so the goal with all multi-use paths have a soft shoulder on both sides. So either you have the road, ideally a park strip with landscaping and trees, and then the path.
Okay, so trees would be the protection for it.
In the ideal situation, yeah.
Because I see the tree on the other side. I guess that's why I'm.
Oh, sure.
You know what I
This
mean?
illustration just doesn't have them, but we, under our park strip standards, would develop trees in all our park strips.
Okay, to be the barrier between the pedestrians.
Yeah,
and the
in
traffic.
addition to the landscaping and the distance.
So
Yes.
the visual would be like on 8th North, where we have a sidewalk, trees that are between the road and
Yep,
the sidewalk.
that is the ideal, yes, on 800 North, the
Geneva.
Canyon Connector Trail. And although that's not a complete trail, we are looking at, as a side note, we are looking at some funding opportunities to study that and to look at ways we can improve that, make that a complete
Because that was
trail.
that fatality years ago with that boy on 8th North, is the car went over the curb and
Oh,
hit the boy on his bike.
yeah, certainly, the more distance and more barriers, such as trees and other amenities that separate the trail from the road, the better. But as we work in a built-out environment, sometimes you can't fit it in, or you're constrained by budget or ability to acquire property. And so sometimes those barriers shrink just to be able to complete the trail.
Could an elevated trail, have you looked into that?
Well, it really depends on, there's a lot of trails that we have planned and we haven't really designed or looked at design for that. You mean by additional 2
I'm
or 3
saying that would
feet?
be a buffer. That would be kind of a
Yeah.
natural, if you're, you don't have
Certainly.
the money for trees and things, you could make it I've seen that in other cities.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be a consideration as we get into design work for any of these trails. We're not doing that yet. This amendment for you is just looking at alignments of different areas we would include trails in our overall network. as we obtain funding for design work, either through grants or direct appropriations, then we can start looking at the different considerations that make it the safest, the most optimal, and then budget from there, whether that can be accomplished or not.
Cause as a mother, that was my main concern. I don't let my kids, I never let them ride their bikes on 1600 North. I never let them,
Sure.
you know, because there was no barrier. So if you could pass that along.
Oh, absolutely. One of the goals of the multi-use trail is to accommodate all types of users. They're not really intended for your road cyclists, road warrior trying to commute at 20 to 30 miles per hour around town. They're designed for families, you know, slower moving, but convey a sense of safety and try not just convey, but to, you know, install that safety. A lot of non-motorized transportation users, you know, bicyclists, you know, if I'm with my kids, I don't necessarily want to be on a bike lane on the road. I want to be on a separated path. The same goes for a lot less daring cyclists, you know, road warrior commuters. They might bike if they have the right facility, but if the right facility is not there, they're not likely to bicycle, either for commuting or for recreation. So the goal of multi-use trails is to include more of those options to expand the ability of those that would, if they could, cycle or walk. And that's what these trails help to do, is expand that option to them. So this is a hard to read map from the plan today. I'll give you some zoomed in versions of this so we can have a little more legibility. But this includes the existing and planned trail network, this map. We're gonna focus down here by the Lakeside Sports Field Park, between that and Geneva Road. There is an existing multi-use path on Geneva Road in this section. That's this, I'm just gonna point this line here, the solid yellow. And then there is existing multi-use path recently finished in Vineyard that terminates right here on the east side of the rail tracks. And there's another existing multi-use path that terminates right there, right as we hit the Orem city boundary. We're going to be calling the one on the west the rail trail, on the east Lake Bottom Canal Trail, and as I said, the Geneva Road multi-use trail. As you can see between those three completed solid lines on there, there's missing connections that tie them together. And so that's what this amendment does. I don't think there's a lot of controversy in the idea of connecting them together, but as we pursue grant funding, often they require these alignments to be demonstrated in our plans and supported by the local government elected body. And so that's why we're here. Okay, this is the actual plan, and the boxes indicate the different areas we'll be discussing. Area 1, 2, and 3. Area 1 is to connect, the Lake Bottom Canal Trail to the Geneva Road multi-use trail. Has a lot of different destinations that would benefit from that connection. This is a little closer view. I'll show you some pictures on the street in a moment. This is where the trail terminates in Vineyard. The goal would be to bring that down underneath the Geneva Road overpass, just north of 400 South. Connect under and then connect north. There's a couple ways that could be done, so it's not exactly going to be in that location, it could be on the east or west of that road, or even a shared use path temporarily until we can make that work in an optimal way. And we then connect up into this intersection and then into the multi-use path. It's actually not too far from here to 400 North. 400 North's right about here off the screen. Unfortunately, that's all Union Pacific right away. And I've been told by a very qualified consultant that there's no way they'll even discuss it with us, so. So we look for an alternative. We believe we have enough UDOT right away under that bridge to be able to make a trail connection happen. A survey will confirm that. But UDOT has indicated their support for doing that if we apply for the appropriate permits. So here's a few pictures on the ground. This is just a little more look at our survey maps and how we determine that right away. But this is the area underneath the bridge that we believe is UDOT right away. A second connection that we'd like to discuss is connecting the rail trail, which terminates at our city boundary, to our multi-use trail at Lakeside Sports Complex. A few pictures of the site. You'll be seeing this is looking southward on the road. And then this is where we propose a crossing because it provides more sight distance. In consultation with Sam Kelly, though, we want to look at that very carefully, and so that's not necessarily determined exactly what we have in that location, but in general, we'd like to avoid the site crossing or the crossing here. And plug Steve and say a little better. Because of this curve, we want more sight distance on any type of crossing. A third connection would bring those two trails together by just improving 400 South. There is a sidewalk in existence. It works as a stopgap measure for trail facilities. Oh, you're fine. But if grant funding could be obtained from other sources of funding, this could be improved to include that separated trail connection. There's a couple ways to look at that, but we will work through that in the design phase. Okay, so again, this is the area of the map that we will be amending if the council agrees with this amendment. And again, it's not easy to read, but this is the current plan, and then you can see on the amendment where we'll add these hash lines for the multi-use trails. Sorry, these are just some graphics of how 400 South might be improved conceptually to include those streets. So the Planning Commission reviewed this last week. They forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council to amend the plan. And we ask for you also to consider that recommendation.
Will be coming in December.
Yes. Thank you.
So I'll just
Yes.
point out, so I brought this up to the planning commission, that Eric Gallus at Utah Lake Authority, we need to connect and work with him. You said you're already talking to Lake Authority, Lake Commission / Authority. We're in between both right now, but because that would tie in with what they're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. With the Utah Lake Commission, there's actually quite a bit of funding to continue the Utah Lake Trail from Vineyard southward into Orem, about Industrial Way. We're working on a preliminary plan for a trailhead there, and then further south to the Provo River Delta area. Because of some legal issues, well, not land entitlement issues, they may be doing the southern portion first, but that is funded and underway in planning design. So this would help facilitate those connections, to your point. Okay.
I'm assuming Orem will pay for Orem's side of the video, will pay for video, we'll just coordinate where they're going.
Yep, and at this point, this is a plan amendment. No funds have been earmarked for this. There are several grant opportunities through the state that we're looking at. Some is technical assistance and design. Some is actual grant money to improve recreational trail usage in the state. Some of that is state money and some is federal that the state manages. So we're looking at both those ponds. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we've got a discussion on the rezone for 3.15 acres from business park zone to PD 51 zone. 720 north, 1550 east. We'll have Jason lead that discussion.
Thanks, Mayor, members of council. So this is just a preview of what they're proposing. River District is what they're calling it. It is a portion of property that you can see. The office building you can see is located right here. This is 1550 north, 8th north, 1550 west east. 8th north, University Avenue is here. The river runs down this way. So this is 3.15 acres that they're proposing to develop into a PD zone. Orem City owns a detention basin, which is at this location, which is why that wraps around there. They're proposing this be a part of the phase 2 that will come in at another time, that will phase 1, 2, 8. And this project will tie, which will show you, tie into the Provo project that's been recently approved by the city.
You were just showing us grounding Orem, is that correct, Jason? Thank you.
That's correct. So this is, the blue line is the city boundary between Orem and Provo. So this is in Provo, this is Orem, this is the piece that's in question right here. There's the detention basin, you can see 1550 University Avenue. This is the project that's currently under construction. If you're to remind, they're going to convert that into a couple of restaurants, I believe, but that's also Provo City at this point. So what they're proposing is 25 units in Orem. They're townhouse style units. You can see the majority of them will actually front or face the river. So their back portion will be deck, and then you can see the trail or sidewalk that runs along the river. Those units obviously know, but there's a connection that comes along here. Here's the Provo. This will be an actual private street. It'll have and Steve Earle is working with them to do a development agreement that will actually be a perpetual access easement for Provo and Orem. So it'd be open year round. They wouldn't be able to close it like some private. This is 1550 at this point is in Orem. That would be in Provo, and that would access down to 5200 north and then out to University Avenue public streets. 180 units in Provo. Same developer owns both. Holger Pratt developer, I forgot, a California is proposing to develop both properties. So the outlined in red is the portion of the zone of PD 51. So, any questions on this?
What's it currently zoned?
It's BP, so business park.
It's a business park.
Yeah. So just kind of blow up of the different 3-story, up to 3-story or 3 levels. It could be 2, but there is a maximum in the ordinance itself of 3 levels. A maximum height of 40 feet, which will to the next slide. This just shows the circulation. The green are the private access points. The red is the one that we talked about, which will access through and be continually open for public access. If I go back, if you can see me, well, I got her. So I'm going to go to the end of this, and I'll show you that. As you can see in Provo, this street that we're talking about, the units when they originally came into Provo City, they had access points, driveways, and different things accessing that main road. Sam and others from our city said that's not a doable. It's going to act as a public street or a thoroughfare through there to have driveways, parking, and different things like that. So the city, Provo City and Orem City got together and they actually redesigned it where you can see now that there's no direct access All these are accessed on internal streets, so there might be some parking. But there's driveways that would conflict with people trying to access through on the property. So that will be something that has helped as far as to act like a public street and not just a.
That's a major improvement from the original plan.
Right, so that's. So some of the key highlights of the text itself, there's 8 units max, they're at 7.93 units per acre. That's what they're proposing. 40 is the maximum height, they're 36.9 to the tallest point of the elevations, which I'll show you. They're proposing brick, rock, cement fiber siding, and stucco as the building materials. No stacked, meaning they're townhouse style, so that unit is all of those levels. There's nobody stacked on top of each other. And then the development will be required, and I'll show you what the appendix YY is, the concept plan, and the elevations will be what they need to build it to. So the text says substantially compliant. When they come in and make an application, we'll make sure that it matches or very close to the concept plan and the elevations that they're showing you as part of the approval.
What's the parking?
2.5 per unit.
And how many bedrooms in each unit?
I think there's a mix of 2 and 3. I think the 3-story units are 3-bedroom. I think the 2 are gonna be.
And do they have any type of CCNRs that prohibit renting of bedrooms?
Individual bedrooms?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. There would be for rent. I mean, the unit itself would be for lease
So could it be student housing in that sense?
with a maximum of 3 individuals.
So I mean, could we have them say it needs to be 3, if you have 3 bedrooms, you have 3 parking stalls?
It's possible. I mean, that they're proposing an ordinance before the council.
Because I mean, I don't want to have a parking issue, like, we don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, right now they're basically what they had, the specific standards outlined 1 through 7. See there. And then all the other text requires to comply with the PRD zone. The PRD standard is 2.5 per unit. So the council, if they chose, could add a number 8 that would say they have to comply.
We could change it to 3 or 1
If
parking
it's a
stall per
3-bedroom.
One
bedroom.
per bedroom.
How does that work, Jason? As far as the 2.5, how do you decide which unit gets 2 or which unit gets 3?
It's just a lease thing, and each unit is at least 2. They have 2-car garages. And there's the additional ones that are out there. I'm sure it's either first come, first served. That's an opportunity for them to, if somebody wants to purchase a 3rd stall, I guess they could do that, depending on the individual. My guess is it's probably just open. They have a 2-car garage, and then the rest of it is first come, first served based on this. They may have some additional options. The applicant would need to probably explain how they're going to do that.
Do you know if they're for sale by owner?
These are going to be maintained by the owner and leased. So there'll be rentals. And my understanding is they're a year lease. And so
And somebody could live in it if they wanted, right? Or is it, when you say rentals, is it an entire project that's rentals, or is it?
my understanding is
buying
the
units?
entire project, 198 in Provo and the 50 or 25 in Orem will all be rented.
But you said it's like student housing, it's a year-to-year contract, basically.
It's a lease. It's like
Student housing.
any lease.
Yeah.
Leases a home or anything like that. It's going to be a year.
But it's one owner. They're gonna maintain ownership and it's a investment.
And then all the landscaping things will be maintained by the.
And then
association.
the roads, how wide are the roads? Is there visitor parking or
Sam, do you have?
can you park on the side of the road and get a car through?
So the road that's going through there, it's private with a public easement, it's gonna look just like a local road, I believe I can't remember, I think it's 24 feet wide is what the actual easement's gonna be with parking along the side, so you're looking at probably a 32-foot wide roadway that's gonna be there in red. The green is obviously much narrower, and that's the main reason why we had to change that is because where it's green, you actually have the backs of those garages that will back straight on to that area, so that's why it won't look and feel like a road, and we made a change. So, does that answer your question? I mean,
Well,
the roads are wide enough. They're gonna be wide enough to meet fire code, which will be 24 feet, but you're not gonna be able to park in there along them parallel on the green part.
Yeah, the green's gonna be 26 feet wide between garage and garage, which is a fire code access of 26 feet.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, is that like the driveway to the driveway or you're saying the building to the building?
So
26?
So these, let me see if I can zoom in. So units 13, let's say, and 25. So the garage, these are the garage doors here, the garage doors here, so they're gonna access directly out of the street.
So they don't necessarily have a driveway.
Like at Winco, those townhouses there, that's the same configuration. They have garages on both sides, they back out and use that access road.
I guess my concern is, I mean, we've all been down to Vineyard over across the thing. My niece lived there. And I mean, they had, 40, 50 cars towed every night because there's no parking for visitors. There's not even parking for residents. You can't park in the street from a fire perspective. Is this gonna be that again? Do you know how that compares?
So I think this is wide enough for cars on both sides. Yep. So that red one will have allowed parking. This will not, it's because there's these are garage doors. These are garage doors. So the parking, any visitor would be in the.
What percentage is that visitor parking, do you know?
Say that again.
Is there a percentage of units is there a requirement for how many visitor parking spots they need to have for
0.5, half stall per unit.
half a stall? So we've got the 2.5 per unit plus a half for visitor or does the 2.5 include
So,
the visitor?
2 per unit, plus the half per visitor.
Per visitor,
So that's.
okay.
This in your first slide, you showed a bunch of property, all of which was Orem. Do you recall that one? My concern is not this project, but several people own property near there that want to do basically the same thing. Some of them have talked to you, correct? Some of the,
Process, yeah, over this property. Is that gonna be referring?
yeah, they're gonna want to do a similar project, so whatever we approve here, whatever we approve or not approve here is likely a thumbprint for the rest of that area.
It's possible. Each of them are independent projects. Each of them have to come through the same process and convince the council that their design, meets the intent and what the council wants. So it doesn't mean you have to vote for it, but it does open the door to consider that as well. So. Just really quick, these are the elevations. So these are see the center point, there's three levels. I'll have a maximum of 3 levels in the project. And maximum height of 40 feet. These elevations are showing a 36.9-inch overall height to the center. So the majority of it will be less than 37 feet.
So I'm sorry to ask the same question, but that garage, so is there any kind of a driveway or is that just the roads, the 26 feet?
It's a combined driveway road.
Okay.
So no parking.
It's almost like an
Obviously not-
alley, it looks like to me.
It functions as an alley, yeah. Yep. Similar, and if you've driven over by Winco, those apartments to the kind of northeast townhouse style, those are very similar to
Are
what this
they?
project is. Yeah.
Same as Vineyard, right?
And the color, these are the color schemes, and this will be part of the ordinance as well. So when I came in, they will basically need to look like one of these with those same type of similar colors. If it's approved, this will be part of Appendix YY that we discussed, along with these these elevations will be part of Appendix Y, and then also the concept plan will be part of Appendix Y. So whatever comes in, if the council chooses to approve this as a PD zone, adopts these as the ordinance, then as staff, we will make sure that whatever comes in meets these requirements.
How many square feet are the townhouses?
The 3-story was about 1,700 square feet. So they have a main level, which is the carport or the garage. They have a little studio, and then the next level is the kitchen and family type room, and then the 3 bedrooms on the 3rd level.
About 1,700.
1,700.
Are there smaller ones in there too?
There must be, because I think there's a mix of heights, so there might be some 2 bedrooms, 2 levels. The applicant would have to explain that better, but that's kind of what they've presented.
So I guess that's gonna be what'll make the difference is if it's mostly like married couples living there, then you probably wind up with a couple of cars. If it's 3 roommates, you wind up with 3 cars kind of thing, so.
Yeah.
You have a picture of so looks like the entrance is gonna be in the other side of the garage, right? For visitors, if someone's coming. Do you have a picture that shows
very sensitive.
How they're entering the
So,
home.
so the main door would be on the opposite of, so for example, on these units, the garage would be here, the door would be on the other side, so facing.
Along the footpath, basically.
On the footpath.
Okay.
So the applicant or the owner or the leasing or whatever can get in, access, you can see there's a door there, so they can access their unit internally through the garage. But somebody visiting would take the sidewalk up into the front, which would be the opposite, same, the truck doors.
So they park in like the visitor stalls there and then walk around to the front.
And you can see the sidewalks, we're gonna be able to access that. So, according to the, these are the ones, basically, if you look at the Provo project, and the Orem project, these are the ones that are actually facing the river. So these are gonna be more of the higher end, probably the higher rents, so these are gonna be more. I don't know that you're gonna get students, but it's possible.
I'm assuming no basements in these,
No basements.
From a tax perspective, what, because we're changing the zoning to this, how's that affecting our income as a city?
I haven't done that, I mean, I'd have to ask Ryan on that one. As far as economic impact.
I couldn't answer that. Right now, it's taxed as unoccupied business park versus, I don't know, you'd have to run an analysis. I wish I could
Yeah,
tell you.
like the businesses versus, I mean, you're getting residential property tax
I don't know.
with that, right? The 45% reduction or exemption.
I mean, a lot of it is based on, the assessed valuation of what you have today versus this or potentially an office in the future.
Potential develop of.
You know, if you have a 5-story office building or a 10-story office building, assessed valuation is gonna be significantly greater.
Let me just go back to this.
And were the phases, was it the same owner that was gonna do an additional phase directly north of this? And that was gonna be all business, right?
Let me address
No.
those questions first. You can see the bulk of the property is up there. This is a very skinny, narrow portion. So to get an office building or other types of uses, it's gonna be very
Parking is,
tight.
if you're gonna surface park like they have, you don't have that opportunity in that spot.
Yeah, building
In the
area is
same
gonna be less here than it would be.
And that's on our Orem side, right?
Now, could you repeat your question?
Yeah, so the question was, is it the same property owner that wanted to develop in another future phase,
Yes.
property directly north of that, and that was going to be all business
So
or
phase,
office space?
phase 2 is where they want the restaurants, which is part 2 of this discussion, is they want to change it for fast food. So there's gonna be a portion of restaurants there and a portion of some type of hotel, motel, some type of stay there. So there'll be some type of unit component there, and then there'll be some restaurants and things like that for next 2 That's phase 2.
So in,
Sorry, just real quick, I was sort of looking at the stalls that are coming up, the outdoor stalls. And it looks like the parking would end up, if every unit has a 2-car garage, it would end up being more like 3 parking spots per unit. Those stalls, the parking stalls, I don't know, there's like 30 of them there.
but you got the
So
Provo.
2.5 is just a minimum, or is it 2.5 for the entire?
I mean,
2.5 is the minimum, but they're providing a few extra spaces.
That's a good question.
I mean, I thought, what if it's a three bedroom unit, then it's 3 parking stalls plus 0.5 for business. Would be my thing, are you gonna have a vineyard all over?
And because it's a PD zone, and they're asking you for the text to rezone it, that's the council's priority, to just negotiate it with them. That's the whole point of the PD zone, is to negotiate standards.
Because as Tom said, that'll mirror whatever else anybody else does. We don't wanna go down the parking lot.
Right, so real quick, one more point is that they are also requesting a text amendment to the BP zone to allow for potential drive-up restaurant. And then also, right now we have the way that it's written in the BP zone is that everything has to match what was there first. So the office building, the 5-story metal clad, anything that would come in would have to match that building. What they're proposing is text that would say each individual project. So this residential project, if approved, would have to match Similarly, the next phase would have to match its own self. Anything across the river would also have to match. So we get individual pockets of things that are matching and not matching the one office building. So that's the point of that, is each individual area would have to be consistent.
Do we have to do this with the first phase?
No,
Because I'd like to see exactly, I mean, you can say, hey, I want fast food, but how many fast food? So
well, in order to get the drive-through in the phase, and that's a key there. They would not be able to do anything that doesn't, except for the sit-down portion. They wouldn't be able to do anything as far as.
so this isn't, this, we don't have to do this second part of it, right?
No.
Because it's not even, that phase isn't even coming.
But they have made application.
They have an application, so it will come before you. You don't have to vote for it. I would encourage that to be done, just because it makes more sense to be consistent with the individual, because what we're having is these projects now, a new owner now, at one time, 40 years ago, not 40, sorry, 25 years ago, everybody, they owned the same project, and they were just gonna mirror different developments. Now it's sold, the office building is owned by somebody else, this project is owned by somebody else, across the river is now owned by somebody else. So you got 3 different developers that potentially could come in. We don't necessarily want to have to match, be forced to match each other. So they can have individual projects on each of those 3 different projects. So, I mean, C is kind of something that staff would agree with to make that change. The restaurant thing is obviously up to the council. If you want some type of restaurant that has a potential for drive-through, as we've gone through the COVID issues, but drive-through restaurants have been key, very critical to keep some of these businesses in business. So I don't know that that's a bad idea either, but that's up to the council.
So does that, a restaurant, does that include like a swig? What's a restaurant is
They
defined?
can include any of the above.
Anything that serves any kind of food?
How many are they talking about putting on there? How many restaurants?
Well, originally it was 3, but I don't know how they're gonna lay them out. There are gonna be a couple of, higher end sit-down type restaurants, and there could be some others that mix in to that mix as well.
Also, they're thinking about hiring both.
We don't know how they're gonna do it, or who's coming, for example, but it's just, they're gonna lay that out and have the option or potential to do different types of tents mix.
So have they given you a drawing?
Not at this point, no, not for phase 2.
They're just kind of giving you their ideas of what they want to do?
Yeah, there is on the concept plan, there is kind of an idea, but they have not. That's more of the
hotel,
hotel, Airbnb type, and the restaurants would be closer to it. So tonight, it's on the agenda, the applicants are not going to be here. They're still working out the development agreement with Steve, and so we would just ask that both projects just be continued tonight without discussing them if that's amenable to the council.
So Jason, oh, sorry. I'm just gonna say, one of the things we're talking about is having the development agreement is having them do a trail along the river. Jason, do you have the drawing that Julie sent us just to kind of show? One thing they requested is that the trail deviate kind of to the west of the project, so it's not on the river right next to those houses.
I don't have that one, so they're showing the purple, which is another trail system, which connects, which would be open to the public, and then the yellow would be the private system that would be next to the river. I don't have the one.
You have this, I'll just send it around if you want, are you interested in seeing that?
Absolutely.
So Provo, when they came in and declared development, they required that connection up to that point be done as part of their development. And at the planning commission, the developer agreed to take it from there all the way up to 8th North as well, as far as the sidewalk access for pedestrians, which is why then we come up with the idea, to have a development agreement tied into that access.
So as Provo approved, they're gonna do restaurants in there, part of the, when you're done, project?
It's all residential.
It's all, so it's no, so the restaurants would be in Orem, so the people have to eat in Orem.
So the restaurants, which is not part of this development, but there are gonna be some restaurants up there.
Bring the food to Orem.
So restaurants will be up in this part, which is not part of this ownership. There'll be parts there, there'll be a bridge right there, so people could pedestrianize access across to there.
Okay.
But the main drive would be up to 5,200.
So procedurally, just so that I understand, Jason, the text amendment we're talking about as related to the drive-through. If the council were to for example, deny that, would they have to wait a year before they bring that text amendment back, or?
I think that only applies to rezone.
I think it's only a reason. So, yeah, I mean, and on November 9th, they can come and discuss the reasons why they want to text them, how it works into the plans. But it's still something that's the front.
So Jason, that, the Orem piece of that, I mean, it's pretty small in the whole scheme of things,
It is.
but it's essentially gonna match. I mean, it'll just look like one project, right? But the city line will go through it, but it'll look and feel like one project.
My understanding is they're gonna be, probably be phases, but it'll all look like the same project.
And the ownership of that entire project will be one group or one person.
Right, from all the way from 8th North, all the way down into Orem, and then in the Provo area is the one ownership.
So tell us a deal if we can get cheesecake.
Cheesecake Factory, I was gonna say that. So the restaurant area, will that be another PD zone?
No. So they're proposing to build that within the BP zone.
That's
which
why you
doesn't
have
allow restaurants, but currently doesn't allow fast food. That's the purpose of that. So they don't want to change the zone there, they'll leave it BP. But the idea behind, so this is the BP ordinance right here. Right now, under B, no restaurants may have drive-through. So that's this is a limiting factor for them to have.
Yes.
So with that currently in there, they could still do restaurants, they just couldn't do fast food, but they're actual plans. They could do fast food, but not a drive-through.
That's a rocky mountain power.
And as far as the parking, we're matching Provo's side too.
I think it might be higher than Provo, but I don't know that for a fact, I don't know Provo's. But 2.5 is probably about the same or maybe higher.
It seems like we're gonna be the small piece of this. I mean, if there's issues, it's gonna be on the bigger piece as opposed to the small piece, right?
Yeah.
We don't really have a control.
Only on phase one, sounds on the mayor, doesn't it?
What's that?
Isn't phase two, is he going more into Orem?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I gave away my map, yeah.
So the Provo portion, which is I think what I was talking about, the small portion in Orem, which would be this residential. The phase 2 in Orem would be meet the current commercial standards.
Okay.
But you're talking about surrounding properties, right? Aren't there surrounding properties? You said that there were.
Yeah, there's another
Residential.
owner who called, perhaps some of you too, saying, hey, what's going on with my property?
And she
Can
would,
you tell us about that, Jason?
he or she, whoever, she.
There was a woman who
It's a
called
she.
me, but I don't know.
She would be under the same obligation these guys are being by coming into the council and applying either for a PD zone or developing something in the BP zone. So they have the option to not come to the council and just do a site plan in the current zone, which is BP Business Park. Or, which is wanting to do something like, then they would have to go through that same process, present the text, present the elevations, present concept plans like you're seeing tonight on this project.
So where does Provo start and then?
So Provo
On
is
this
this line right here.
Okay, so there, okay,
So
so
that
that's
big lot
that
is Orem.
north.
So this
And
is
then-
Provo, this is the old printing press years ago,
Okay,
now it's
yeah.
being converted to some.
So there's, all right.
Okay,
So that's quite a
traffic,
bit of something.
I'm sorry.
And part of her frustration is not just the zoning effort, it's utility connections and what. Because, yeah, because there's some demands that she would have to meet under Orem that she doesn't have to meet under Provo. So she's frustrated about that.
Yeah, there is some, I think, ability to go under the bridge and access the lift station there, so I think there's ways that she could develop. her
Yeah.
property in Orem.
Okay, so traffic access, we haven't talked about that yet.
So the majority of their access, this project, most likely this will come down 5250. There is access potentially up to 8th North. And there's also, they are proposing to build, there's two portions of the bridge, one that's a newer portion, and one that's an older portion back in the 50s, maybe 40s, 70s. They're proposing to take out the old portion and build a new half a bridge, put a connection across and access on the university.
That would definitely help.
And do they have approval from, is that the state?
That's something they're working in. We're not requiring that as access for this project. Because they have this main access coming down here and a secondary access down here. But that is then a third access would be available to them.
So if people want to go north from that development, how would they do it?
The easiest way, I would come down to 50 to 50, either go up to Center Street in Orem, or go there and come up and go up 8th North that way. Or if it's during, midday midday hours or after 5 o'clock or 7 AM. 8th North is accessible, it's just peak hours that are gonna be very difficult to go westbound.
So there will be a left turn allowed.
No.
That I don't know, that's,
There will not.
sounds good.
We're actually, so UDOT right now is they have a consultant hired, it's the same consultant, I don't know if you guys got a tech memo from Avenue Consultants. They did a traffic analysis of this area in 2015. Avenue Consultants is they're putting together an engineer's estimate for a median in 8th North in this area. It'll likely allow a left turn to go to Mama Choose or Will's Pit Stop or the Olmsted Power Plant. But it will not allow a left turn out, and it won't allow a left turn into this site because of the site distance issue. So we're actually, that's part of the developer agreement as well, as we're looking at that. And because it's an existing condition, UDOT, the city and the developer will be partners on that median. But the developer will still likely have to do some other mitigation measures, being a right turn decel lane to actually turn into this project.
And Sam, maybe you can tell them about some of the conversations we've had about Canyon Road and trying to square up an intersection there for
Yeah.
signalization in the future.
Yeah, so UDOT is in favor of putting a signal at this location here, generally. They're working with Provo. Provo has a major water main that goes through here. And what they're trying to do is they're looking to possibly extend this a little bit further up into this area and then cross, and then they'll have this bridge access here with the signal. There has been discussions of doing something there, but they need to talk with the state for a string alteration permit, as well as the Army Corps possibly. We're not in favor of just having half of a bridge be brand new and the other half being 20 years old either, so.
So that kind of speaks to the issue that you're saying, how do you get north? If there's a signal there in the future, then you just take the signal and then you loop onto 8th North, or you head up the canyon. Makes sense.
Okay. And who's paying for that signal?
It's a UDOT road.
So it's not, it has to be funded by UDOT.
Well, so usually what happens in these types of scenarios is that this one not being part of Orem, UDOT would likely participate by providing the hardware, being the cabinet boxes, the mast arms, the poles, and things like that. It's usually about $150,000 to $200,000 of material. The developer would then go ahead and get that intersection designed, and then they would build it. Provo could be part of that equation, but it wouldn't be Orem.
Okay, wouldn't be us.
Okay.
And then business impact for Mama Choose, the service station there. Have you talked to those people or?
No, we haven't. I mean, that's all part of this moving target is, once we get an idea of what's gonna happen there for the median, then yes, we will engage all the parties that are involved there. Mama Choose, Will's Pit Stop, Central Utah Water Conservancy, other owners. And probably the county too, because we'll have to figure out to get access to that county parking lot that's right there below where it says Parkway Trailhead. That's a trailhead parking lot where folks park there.
Yeah, because if I, like, from what you said, if I'm coming down 8th North, east, and I want to go to Mama Choose, am I gonna be able to turn left into Mama Choose? It's not gonna affect me at all. It's just gonna affect them being able to come out.
There
and
will
turn
be a
left.
left-hand turn, right?
Yeah, so you'll be able to still proceed down and turn left and go in. It's just when you won't be able to turn left.
You won't be able to come out of the road 1550 and turn west onto 8th North.
So you can turn right and still go back to your home, but if you needed to go east, you would have to go up around and come out of the signal there at Palisade Drive and then head east, if that makes sense.
And that has been an area that's had more accidents than normal.
Yep. Come see Tom's house.
Yeah, the geometry of the road is such that it doesn't make a signal.
Follow there.
We can't put a signal right there because
If they
there's
don't
just
like
not enough time to stop and grade, excuse me.
Speeds.
It's really bad when the sun's setting there.
It is
You cannot
really
see. In fact, I think you mentioned the child that was killed there. That location was about 1996. It was right there at 8th North.
And maybe they
Right
wasn't
by
on a
Mama
bike,
Choose.
maybe they were just playing in the orchard. I'm trying to remember.
They were on a bike.
They were on a bike.
They were on a bike.
Imagine if they came up over the hill and that sun
Yeah.
is just directly.
There's been a fatal accident at that intersection at Mama Choose there too. Somebody was pulling out, was hit by a semi, and they died instantly, maybe about 15 or 18 years ago.
I remember that one too. It's a dangerous place.
That's all I got. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Are we good? Got
Terry,
everything?
did you say the planning commission had heard this already?
Yeah.
And they were divided on?
Yeah.
How was it divided?
Far as concerns, I think they had about 84.
Yes, the very thing we're talking.
Yeah, same conversation. Yeah.
It was divided 4-4.
3-2.
3-2.
Or, so the other thing is.
3-2, so we have 7 members on that. They didn't have all 7 there, then they.
Yeah.
And we can't forward a positive or a negative recommendation without a majority.
Now 4.
So Jason, did you say that you're recommending that we continue this tonight?
So both items, there's 2 items, one that we saw in the text, and the amendment to the restaurant. Both of them continue that to November.
Right, what we want to do is continue it, give everybody a chance to think about it, talk about it, gather more information before we vote on it.
And these slides, we've sent them to, I think, a couple of different times, so all these slides are in your. If you have questions, please give me a call.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and take a break. Bring some food out and we'll finish this up and go through the agenda. Would somebody like to say a blessing on the food? I've already started. Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this opportunity to meet. We pray thy spirit to bless us, that we'll be guided to act in ways that would be pleasing unto thee. We pray for this food this night that will bless us, and we thank thee for the opportunity to serve the city. And we say this in thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
They're the ones that are the truckers.
Let's go ahead and run through the rest of the agenda, please.
Oh, yeah.
Not following the sun.
All right. Let's wrap this up. We've got, sorry, agenda review. City council reports. I don't think anyone's doing that tonight, are they? Okay.
No, this is just
Council
members.
Council members. Okay, so we'll call the order, invocation, pledge of allegiance. Debbie was gonna do that, but Jody just told me that she wasn't able to because she's kind of out of town. If anyone has any ideas of somebody you want to ask, just let me know. Say the prayer and the pledge. So we'll see who's there.
Tell her that's unacceptable.
And then we'll have a report from Bryce on the rec center, right? Okay. And what I'd like to do, because it's been controversial and it's been in the news, there was some complaining about the way that we conducted the meetings where we turned off the live stream. We've got a statement for that on our city website. I'd like to read that statement.
Do you have it?
I need somebody to give it to me if you could. Yeah, you just print it and give it to me. I'll read it right before the personal appearances. And we'll have the personal appearances. And then we've got consent items. And we'll, Jason presents that.
No, this is, if you're okay with it, we've discussed it in the past, this is just renaming a portion of 165 as Bruin Boulevard,
Okay,
adjacent to Mountain View High School.
so we'll just list that as a consent item and then we'll have a vote on it.
Correct.
Okay. And then we've got scheduled items. We've got appointment to the CDBG commission.
I can do that. I know Jenna.
So you'll take care of that.
Is she coming? Kind of worth kind
We've got item 9.2, an ordinance. And
This is the Center Point Church, the continuation. We were working on a development agreement. And I think, Steve, we're ready with the development agreement today.
Church will be here to address any questions, but they're proposing two options. One is the standard, which is the 16.6 height sign with two sides at 48 feet on each side. Or they've talked about just doing one side that faces more south, to pick up the north.
okay,
72 square feet with nothing on the back side. So either one face sign or two double face. Yeah, either 72 square feet or 48 square feet. So they have signed that development agreement. So if the council chooses to, I'll show you the signs on.
would that be their option or would that be right side 72 or
So
the
they've signed the development agreement, so if you're okay with that, they could have either, I'm sorry, yes. If they choose to do the double, they would do the 48 square feet.
So if we approve it, they can do either one. Okay.
But Ken wasn't sure if the appointment would be here tonight. I just texted Ken to ask.
Okay. Will and answer.
And then we've got this public hearing about what we were just talking about, the river district.
Yeah, so 9.3 and 9.4. Is 9.4 Jason's, just the text amendment. Yes. So both of them would need to be continued.
So we do them independently, and then somebody would make a motion to continue. In 9.5, public hearing ordinance.
Right.
And that would be Brandon presenting that. And then item 10, monthly financial summary, that's nothing we do.
It's just included in your package.
Okay. And we have there, and I think that's all we've got, unless there's any questions. I think we're good to go? Thank you.
Yeah. This is the church agreement.
Yeah, it's
Center of the church.
How are you? Good, how you doing?
No. Is that a no on that one? This one is not. You probably do
That happens. It's hard. Can I sign up? No.
We'd like to call this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. And to start out, we'd like to start with a prayer. And we've asked Skip McWhorter to say that prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we humbly bow our heads this evening to give thee thanks for the many blessings that thou hast given us. We're grateful for this great country that we live in with the freedoms that we enjoy and for the sacrifices that have taken place through centuries of effort to allow us to live today with these freedoms. We're grateful, Father, for these public servants that dedicate time and their talents in helping Orem City and the residents here move forward in a positive way. We pray, Father, tonight as we are together that we might discuss important things, that we might have tolerance and love and sympathy and understanding and kindness towards each other as we recognize that we all have differing opinions and perspectives. We're grateful, Father, for the opportunity to have a voice, to share our thoughts and perspectives, and to recognize and respect and appreciate others for theirs. These things we pray for humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. We'd like to follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance with Greg Carlisle.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go on, I'd just like to announce that two of our council members are not here tonight. Debbie LeRae has asked to be excused, and also Terry Peterson. They both had things that they needed to attend to outside of tonight. The first thing on our agenda is we've got a report from our rec center from Bryce.
Mayor and Council, thank you for having us with y'all today. I am Bryce Merrill, the Recreation Director here for Orem City, and mostly I will be turning this over to our Recreation Advisory Commission Chair, Skip McWhorter, who just wanted to take us through a quick update on sort of the last year of what's been happening in the Recreation Department at the Recreation Center, and we'll go from there. So I'll turn over to Skip.
Mayor Young and council members, appreciate the opportunity to share with you a few minutes of what Parks and Recreation has done, and the RAC Commission has been working with Bryce and his team. I don't know that there's been a more exciting time from a recreational perspective to be a citizen in Orem. And I think as you think back on projects that have been building up and coming to fruition, more and more you see the revitalization of neighborhoods and areas and communities that thrive around parks that are more dedicated to things that we enjoy and not just an open space. A couple of things we want to highlight real quickly is, first of all, the fitness center, our first year performance and where we're at with the fitness center, co-sponsoring and reorganization, athletic field improvements. We'll talk a little bit about improving access to the Sierra Pool and what that looks like, and then conclude with some updates about Hillcrest and the leisure swim and other projects that are ongoing. First of all, I don't know, super excited about the process that the fitness center has gone through. This year, we're 25% above last year in memberships, in day passes, in usage, et cetera, and couldn't be more thrilled with that. Up to 22,500 memberships, outreaching what we were anticipating, what our goals were. The beauty of that is not just in the number of people that are showing up and its use, but it's also generated an opportunity for the fitness center to be in the black with greater operating revenue than our operating expenses. And I know that the fitness center hasn't heretofore run that way. So super excited about that. I think it proves a lot about the effort that went into providing services and opportunities and programs that Orem citizens want to enjoy. The other benefit of that financial reward is the ability to add additional equipment. And Bryce and his team are in the process now through November, prior to winter getting here, when most of the recreational activity and exercise will need to come indoors because of weather. So planning ahead with additional equipment and fitness facility usage will be great. Expanded fitness offerings are going in this next month. The leisure pool and structure will be completed in January, and expanding the ages from 2 to 6 to 2 to 12. So super excited about what that'll do for us. Co-sponsored programs have really revitalized and made a huge impact in how Orem residents can move forward. For example, programs that are co-sponsored like Orem Youth Baseball and Orem Youth Soccer, which are dedicated to kids in Orem, have a reduction in what costs have to go to the city, which allows those programs to reduce the cost to each of the individual kids that are participating. That also will, I can speak, for example, in OIB, because I'm on that board. Each year we have to scholarship kids that can't afford to play. And a reduction like this is a huge improvement on helping us have more kids come play and not have to scholarship as many. So a huge improvement there. It's also been a great way to separate out those programs that are dedicated to youth that live in Orem, as well as those more competitive programs, that club programs, club baseball, club soccer, where there are outside kids coming in, separating the fee structure in that so that they pay appropriately to use Orem facilities is a big win. And every year we get compliments on having the best facilities of anyone around the state. Orem Youth Baseball, for example, we play tournaments when the All-Stars come around as far away as Logan and St. George. And it doesn't matter where they come from. They come to City Center here and brag about what the facilities are like. So hats off to the city for their dedication there. One quick thing I'll say before we move on, our fall partnership with UV Rays in the swim program. has been awesome. I know there were a lot of tensions around things and a lot of differing opinions, but the way that's come together, Orem kids filled every slot in tryouts, and I personally have colleagues that have kids in that program and couldn't be more thrilled with the way it got resolved, moving forward with UV rays and then transitioning into Orem's own program. So hats off to Bryce and all those that helped with that program. Next is the Sierra Pool. And the beauty of the Sierra Pool changes is moving from a day pass program to a membership program has really changed the dynamics. I mean, almost a 90% reduction in cost of usage, rather than having a punch pass that you use. Okay, if I've got enough time and it all works out, okay, let's go use the pool, versus I've got a membership. And if I've only got an hour, we can still run down and enjoy the pool for an hour. So a big benefit there, as well as increased in membership and number of families that are now using the pool at their leisure rather than being tied to a punch pass. So super excited about what that has done. One thing I need to say is there is a lifeguard shortage across the nation, just like there's an officiating shortage for all sports across the nation. So hats off to Katie and Val, our coordinators for aquatics, that have been able to get good lifeguards and keep them staffed and keep us operational and full. So appreciate that. Lastly, then we'll talk about project improvements that are going on. Obviously, Hillcrest Park, you guys had a 45-minute discussion 2 weeks ago about it. And I don't know that enough good can be said about that park. But I think one thing that Orem residents will feel but may not recognize is the emotional value that comes to a neighborhood when you revitalize a park like that. This Hillcrest Park is going to be awesome, not just for the city of Orem, but a huge emotional benefit for all the residents that live around there. Lakeside Park improvements moving forward, the playground, the Sierra, Springwater, and Sharon Park improvements are moving forward, and a huge benefit for the residents. You walk around or drive around the city of Orem now, there's not a park that doesn't have some aspect that's overloaded. There's not a pickleball court anywhere in Orem that's not overused. There's not a futsal court that's not loaded up with people. And I think that the vision and the dedication of funding and the opportunities that have made that happen has been a huge, huge benefit. We were talking, Bryce and I, in our last RAC meeting, trying to determine how can we quantify what care tax has done for those improvements in the city. Bryce has got a team that can kind of figure that out, but I hope that the residents, and certainly you as the public servants in charge of Orem City, I hope they recognize the value that has come out of care tax for the residents of Orem, especially for the kids of Orem. These youth programs that are co-sponsored with the city, they don't happen without a care tax fund or a huge expense on the parents of those kids that are participating. So a big thank you to you, public servants, for recognizing the value of investing back in the city and making Orem what it is. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do. So can you go back one slide?
No.
So the picture on the bottom right, is that what you're going to do at the Sierra Pool, or is that?
This is the indoor play
the
structure that
this
will
is
be
the
installed
indoor.
in
I got
January.
you.
Yep.
Okay, nice. But also, I serve on that. I'm a liaison with the Rec Commission, and it's an amazing group of people, and it's great to work with Bryce. And I think you guys have done a lot, and I commend you for it.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
I've been on the RAC Commission now for a little over 5 years, so my term is almost up.
We're going to give you an extension.
That'll work for me because I love it. But I just wanted to say, the difference Bryce has made in the direction, the focus, the energy, the detail is second to none. So you guys got this one right. Thank you. As an Orem citizen, thank you very much, because it has been a huge improvement in direction and focus, and couldn't say enough good. So thank you.
Thank you.
So
Tom?
can I just add to, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just want to add, I saw Bryce at work when we were working with the UV Rays and with the Orem Youth Soccer. Dave Spencer pulled me in on those meetings. And to watch these gentlemen work together and Bryce, I appreciated the way that you handled that. That was very good. I really feel we had positive outcomes for our kids, which is where it all should be focused. So thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
You're in a great commission. You sell happiness. That's what you do. That's what your whole commission does. We're grateful to be a part of it. And I just wanted to echo what you astutely pointed out, Skip. The care tax has made so much of this possible. And I thank the citizens of Orem who voted in favor of that 8.5 years ago or so. And we'll have that opportunity again, I guess, in 1.5 years or so, if we're up on target. I just thank them for their commitment to happiness and family. I mean, it's part of what makes Orem Family City USA. And thank you for delivering so well on that, the two of you and the rest of your committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. And Councilmember McDonald just kind of touched on it. As you know, we have a responsibility to renew a care tax every 10 years. And if we are to keep essentially that tax in place and not experience a gap, it's necessary for us to bring that to the people next November. So we as a community will be preparing ourselves for that. As you recall, in years past where that tax has been something that is promoted, it has been a citizen-driven initiative. And I think tonight we have a great potential individual to help lead that program sitting in front of us. And I don't believe I'm looking at Bryce. I think I'm looking at Skip, who serves as obviously a fantastic chair of the commission, but also one who recognizes and advocates for the tremendous value that the care tax brings to the community. We're just talking about some of what the care tax, we haven't touched base on the rehab efforts that we have underway right now, for example, at the Sierra Pool Complex, and some of the future things that we're looking to do at the complex in terms of the zero entry, the shallow area, where we add additional toys and opportunities there, as well as additional improvements at a number of our parks. This program, this tax is a tremendous blessing to the community. And it's something, like I said, that has been citizen driven. Yeah. And not just to focus on the recreation piece of things, but the arts piece of things is significant as well. And so, Skip, we very much appreciate your commitment to the Rec Commission and to Orem Recreation and being a champion, because it really is, and it really does literally change neighborhoods when we have these kind of facilities throughout the community.
Agree completely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll get with you about serving as the chair.
If it's care tax, I'm happy to help.
I just want to say thank you also from an adult perspective. I work at a company where we have teams that play softball and we play volleyball. And we've been doing this in Orem, and it's been fun going to work the morning after a softball game or a volleyball game and to just kind of witness what has happened there, because we have some people that we come in last, it doesn't matter what the sport is, and nobody cares about, competing. But the beauty is these individuals that come together to play a team sport, some that have played before, some that have never, haven't had a lot of experience, but the camaraderie and just the friendships that have been developed playing a sport, doing something fun, being out on a basketball court, a softball diamond, a volleyball court is such a beautiful thing. So I just want to say thank you from an adult perspective for the things that you're doing also for us old folks and others that are able to enjoy that. So thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Skip, I really appreciate your presentation. That was great to get updated on that. And then Bryce, I think you do a phenomenal job. I mean, I've seen a lot of people in different jobs. And I think you're doing a fantastic job with the rec center. I mean, you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, and you're making it happen. And I appreciate that. And I will say, I'm not a fan of taxes, especially extra taxes, but I would be a total supporter of the care tax because that's a legit tax that adds so much value to our community. So,
Amen. Amen.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I wanted to point out that those of you who are here tonight are here for a historic moment. We have no personal appearances. I've never seen that happen. And this night will go down in history. As far as, I do have a statement that I need to read because there's been some questions in the media. And so let me just read this. This is a City of Orem statement. At 2 recent city council meetings, the City of Orem stopped the live stream of a portion of its meetings on its website in order to avoid potential violation of Utah Code Section 20A-11-1203, which prohibits publishing an argument for or against a ballot proposition on the city's website. Both meetings were still recorded in their entirety, and a link to the recording of the entire meetings is available upon request to the city recorder. The city's actions were in full compliance with the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act and were done in an effort to comply with the law and not to skirt it. As reported by Fox 13, the Utah Attorney General's office has reviewed complaints about the discontinuance of the live stream and found that the meetings were not improperly closed because the in-person meeting continued with the public still in the room. The City of Orem will continue to make every effort to ensure that its actions are in compliance with the law and allow the City Council, of course, will do the same and will continue to be the most transparent City Council, I believe, around. Let's move on. So we've got one consent item. The consent item is a resolution renaming a portion of 165 South between 400 West and 800 West Street as Bruin Boulevard and 165 South.
Move we accept that resolution or this consent item, Mr. Mayor?
I'll second that.
Aye.
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 The consent item passes. We now have Bruin Boulevard, which is great. My kids will appreciate that. Next, we've got item 9.1. We've got an appointment to the CDBG Commission, and Lene has been working with that. If you'd like to take care of that.
Yes, so I'd like to just present Janet Alvarez as a member of our CDBG Commission. I have met with her a couple times. She's an incredible woman. She will be a fantastic representative for our Hispanic community. So I would like to make a motion that we appoint Janet Alvarez to the CDBG Commission at this time.
Second.
2 seconds. Aye.
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 Aye, thank you. The appointment passes. Item 9.2. We have an ordinance amending section 14-1-4 sign zones and the sign zone map of an Orem City Code extending sign zone E to include a portion of the Center Point Church property located at 1550 South Sandhill Road. Jason Bench will make a presentation on this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As just introduction, I guess maybe if you guys can introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Chris Allen. I'm the executive pastor at Center Point.
I don't think that's on.
Scott McKinney, I'm the lead pastor at Center Point.
Just a shout out to Scott. He's an excellent individual. They both are, but I've dealt with Scott on several occasions and been to a couple of his sermons. He's a great individual and a great person. So anyway, tonight they're here as a continuing item to request that the sign zone be amended to cover a portion of their property that they want to be have the sign located. As we discussed last time, to take it in front of the building to the north and just skinny it down and to access their properties. you can see on that. Let me go to the next. Gives a little better idea. Let me get my pointer out just to. So this portion, sign zone E is existing. And this is the portion that we're proposing to be added to the map. There is a sign currently already on this property. So this should allow that to extend down and include their property that fronts I-15 to allow them the ability to have that sign. It would not allow them either property to have signage out next to Sandhill Road. This is the area that we've worked with Mr. Earl from our attorney's office and Chris to come up with a development agreement to limit the sign to this location that you can see outlined in the red. It would allow them to build the sign within the development agreement. There's two stipulations. One that the maximum height is 16 feet 6 inches. The other option is that they can have it a double-sided sign that would face north and south that could pick up both southbound and northbound traffic on I-15. Or they could do one single face sign of 72 square feet that would, I assume, direct to pick up more of a northbound traffic coming towards the church. So either one of those options is in the development agreement. They have signed the agreement and would meet that stipulation in locating it in that area B. And then either or of those sign opportunities. This gives you an idea of where that is located at this area here. As we discussed last time, the Planning Commission did review this and did make a recommendation that the sign be located on that west side, and be glad to address any questions.
So is 16 feet regardless of the size?
16 feet 6 inches would be the maximum height.
That's the height.
Yep.
And
then,
can you go back to that picture of the sign? And just
that's this one?
Yeah, just put in context.
So this is the one that would
What
be
size
the
that is?
48 square feet.
That's 48. So
Yep.
72 would be,
So it'd be a 6 foot height and 12 feet wide would be the 72 square feet. So
so
it'd be a
it would
little-
it'd just be a foot wider than this.
about a foot wider and a foot and a half taller, roughly.
Okay.
Yep. But it would be set back between the building and I-15. So you're not going to see it from Sandhill Road, but you will see it from I-15.
Okay.
So is it, when you say a foot taller, but it's, the top's going to stay the same as the top of the
Sorry,
building?
deeper, I guess.
Deeper?
Yeah, 6
Okay.
foot.
Just
Yeah,
to
the
clarify
sign
that.
indicated there is 4'6", so a foot and a half, but it'd be 16 is 6 is a maximum height. They would bring it down a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for that clarification.
And last time, I think you asked Councilwoman Millet, is this electronic sign?
It could be electronic, yes.
Is it currently electronic?
They don't have a sign currently.
Oh, then it isn't. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
I'd like to make a motion that the city council by ordinance amend section 14-1-4 sign zones and the sign zone map of the Orem City Code extending sign zone E to include a portion of the Center Point Church property located at 1550 South Sandhill Road.
Second.
So could I interject real quick? Jason, I can't remember if we're required to have a public hearing on this or not with the sign zone.
I believe we did last.
And that's what I wanted to make sure. Did we have the public hearing last time? Just want to make sure we've complied with that part of it. Okay.
I think we did, and then we
Okay.
continued.
Then we just continued it. Perfect.
So you okay, Steve?
Yep.
Thank you, Steve.
So
we were at a second.
I seconded and I will vote aye.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Okay, the ordinance passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next, we've got item 9.3, a public hearing ordinance on the River District. Do it.
You can.
I'll make a motion that we continue this item for 2 weeks till our next meeting.
November 9th?
November 9th, 2 weeks and a day until November 9th.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Aye.
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 The continuance passes. Next item 9.4 is a public hearing ordinance. On a different part, I'll just read it. Amending a portion of Appendix A of the Orem City Code by amending the standard land use for fast food, making such use permitted in business park zone. Amending section 22.9.8 miscellaneous regulations for manufacturing and research and development zones to allow fast food restaurants with a drive-through and make architectural standards consistent throughout the West Side Development Project in the Business Park Zone located at approximately 800 North and University Avenue.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this ordinance to November 9th, city council meeting.
Do we have a
I'll second that.
Okay.
Aye.
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 The continuance passes. Next, we've got item 9.5, a public hearing ordinance amending the current fiscal year 2022, 2023 budget. And Brandon will give us a presentation on that.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Once again, time for some of our basically quarterly budget amendments. As you may or may not be well aware, we receive numerous grants throughout the year. And at this time, as you can see, those items, if you'll know, these items that are indicated by a 1 on here on this summary, those items are related in some way to a grant or donation and then are applied to the applicable areas that they were granted for to be used. And we have, obviously, this is, as you see, is the revenue side of that, the monies we expect to receive for those items. And then down lower, you'll see the expenditures page and where those elements are designed to be spent within the applicable fund, depending on, obviously, like I said, which fund it happens to be related to. Are there any questions about any of those grants or donation items?
Obviously, there's only a half dozen big ones. We sold a fixed asset for a little more than we thought we would. What's the miscellaneous revenue? Could you talk about that?
So the miscellaneous revenue item has to do with an ambulance that is wrecked. And so we received some settlement money in relation to that wreck, and we were going to fix that ambulance. And it's the funds that from that settlement in order to fix that ambulance.
And if you scroll down, we'll see a similar expense to go up, right?
Correct. About right there in the middle of the page, you'll see that number 5, and you'll see the 75,000 right there. So that's the corresponding piece to get that repaired.
Can you just hit some of these other significant revenue and expenses? Like you've got the sales of the fixed assets. I'm also curious about, I can't move this screen. I'm also curious about the state asset forfeiture grant. I'm just curious what that is.
Okay. So the sale of fixed assets is the difference between, so that's $1,900, right? So that the original budget already had $100,000 budgeted, and we're amending it to $101,900. So it's increasing by $1,900, which were the sale of some police equipment so that they could, in essence, go buy some other equipment using those funds.
Okay.
The state asset forfeiture grant, we apply to receive a grant through forfeitures that occur through, I believe it's CCJJ, the Commission for Criminal Justice. Yeah, and so upon an application, then they award grants from funds that they receive in that forfeiture program. And the $52,000 is how much we are awarded as part of that.
So what is that? Just, I don't know what the state forfeiture program is. I'm just curious.
So from what I understand, for example, if there's a forfeiture of any sort of cash or asset that is essentially taken by the UHP or state police jurisdictions, the state doesn't keep all that money. essentially distribute those dollars through a grant program.
Okay.
So they seize.
So if there's some kind of
assets-
criminal activity.
Yeah, they seize assets of bad guys and then they turn them around and use those assets for good.
Can I ask a question? So
Yes.
is that, Jamie, is that based on where the assets were forfeited, or is that statewide?
It's within the state of Utah. And the state, from what I understand, this CCJJ is the organization that administers the grant, and they're the ones who make the allocations, but it's a statewide organization.
Interesting. Okay.
The last item on there, for instance, the bulletproof vest grant, you'll notice it's slightly different than the others in its description, has appropriated surplus next to it there at the beginning. Though that grant, the funds from that grant were received on June 27th. Obviously, on June 27th, we do not have the ability to do a budget amendment at that time. So, but we have to deposit those funds. And so they were deposited on June 27th. In the prior fiscal year. And now we come forth and so they sit in our surplus, right? Even though they're grant related. And so then in this budget amendment, we now in essence use that surplus, that obtain those funds to be able to use them what they were intended for. And you'll see that in a couple of other cases where, for instance, down on number 3, the storage tank we received some funds from Metro Water, and those funds were received on June 30th. But their intended use is for the storage tank project. And so this budget amendment takes them out of surplus and applies them towards that project. Item number 4, for instance, if you're right there in the kind of the middle of the screen, the original dump truck was budgeted, and then we found that the truck was going to cost a little more. And so we're again appropriating some reserves to be able to purchase that vehicle at the cost that, and we run across that quite a bit. We don't always have to do appropriations of surplus to accommodate that, but obviously in the current environment, we run across that periodically. Let's see. Most of the others are relatively smaller. I don't know if there are any one of those in particular you had any other questions about.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. So we'll go ahead and open a public hearing. If there's any public that would like to comment or have questions on this. Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor.
Yes.
That the City Council by ordinance amend the current fiscal year 2022-2023 budget.
Okay.
Second.
Aye.
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 The ordinance passes. Thank you, Brandon. Last on our agenda, we've got communication items from our city manager, Jamie Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things this evening. One of them you've already touched on as a reminder that our next meeting will not be held on November 8th, which is a Tuesday, which happens to be election day. So the council, you as a council have elected to schedule the meeting on Wednesday, November 9th. So just want to make the public aware of the fact that if you come Tuesday night, the 8th of November, we won't be here. We hope you won't come here, but we'll come the next evening on November 9th here at part of our regularly scheduled city council meeting. In addition to that, we are well underway with the demolition of Hillcrest Park and Hillcrest Elementary School. The contractor has actually assembled some bricks from that project. And in the event any of you would like a commemorative brick from Hillcrest School, we can make those available to you. I just wanted you to know that they were available, and we'll specifically reach out to Councilmember Peterson because we know obviously he has a family connection to that school. But want to essentially extend the opportunity for all of you to have access to that, to a brick if you'd like. The project is going very well. We are very appreciative of the work of our public works staff, who leading up to the demolition of the school itself spent many, many days and weeks in the demolition and essentially pull out of concrete and asphalt and turf and other materials on site that have made the transition to our contractor easy. And so we appreciate obviously the work that Public Works has done. And Chris, if you could please pass on that appreciation to your team. Bud Maha's Construction is now, well, the subcontractor that is doing the demolition work is now on site and is demoing pieces of the school that were specified as part of the plans, and we are moving forward with that project. So we're not necessarily turning dirt yet, but we are taking down and we'll be ready in the spring to turn dirt on that project. Another project that I wanted to make you aware of is the Heritage Water Tank. We have in recent months been talking about escalating cost of materials and labor and such. We actually accepted and closed on the bids for the water tank last week. We pre-qualified 5 bidders. 4 of those 5 companies bid on the project, and the pricing for the tank came back surprisingly better than engineering estimates, which is incredibly encouraging when you obviously are in this market where you think things are escalating in an exponential way and you try and plan for that, and then the number comes back less than what you were anticipating. It's good news. I know some of our staff and the engineering consultants have reached out to this firm, which is a reputable firm. They actually have done a lot of concrete and steel work throughout the state, and said, can you really do the project for this price? And they said, yes. And we said, are you sure? And they said, yes, again. So the process is moving forward, and we expect in the next couple of weeks that we will finalize bid award to that contractor, and then we would begin the contract process of developing the agreement and to have them on site. And over the winter months, they will begin excavation of that site and get the tank piece of the project well underway. Obviously, we're very sensitive about what is across the street, Orem Elementary specifically, and we have a very specific traffic and transportation plan to obviously protect those that are attending the school and those that are using 4th South on a regular basis, and 4th West, of course, because that excavation of the site will require a lot of trucks coming in and out of the property, transporting material off-site, so that we can, in the future, replace the big hole with a large concrete water tank. So that's very, very good news. The other piece of news you probably saw today relates to UVU and the donation that they've received from UCCU to construct a $20 million soccer stadium on property. Obviously, that's big news for UVU. We're excited for them. One of the things that then kind of triggers for us is UVU in years past has shared a master plan that included many of these facilities on the west side of the freeway. And now they are finding themselves on the east side of the freeway. And so we are going to reach out to UVU and see where they are. Obviously, they've been through a revised master planning process. And I think it would be good in the future to invite representatives from UVU, perhaps Steve Anderson, who is the one who maintains that local relationship with us, to come in and to share with you as a council where UVU is in relation to their master plan and the future of obviously what we call the East Campus as compared to the West Campus. And then, of course, the properties and pieces of the campus that are in Vineyard. I know, for example, that they have a health sciences building that is also something that they are working towards, but on the west side of I-15, not on the east side of I-15. So that's something I wanted to make you aware of. And just the last thing related to 1600 North, Mayor and I had a conversation yesterday about the 1600 North project. As you recall, that's a opportunity and a project to expand 1600 North from 12th West to State Street from actually 3 lanes to essentially a 5-lane section, 2 lanes each way. Money has been appropriated for that project, but unfortunately, given current conditions, the $40 million that was set aside for that project is insufficient to complete the project. And that project has found its way dropping on the list of UDOT priorities for reasons based on finances and budget, but also based on some of the rumblings and some of what officials up at the legislature and within UDOT have heard relative to the city's support for that road. From my perspective, I think the support for that road remains strong with you as a city council. And so I talked with the mayor about putting together a letter that would echo and reassert your support for that road expansion, and to essentially suggest to whoever may be talking about Orem and our excitement for that road that we remain committed to that road. That road is an important regional transportation facility, and we have you as a city council support that road, and we would like to obviously share that information and share that letter with UDOT and with those up at the state legislature and others, including, for example, MAG, who may think otherwise. I have yet to draft the letter, but my plan is to draft that letter, and I'd like to request each of your signatures on that letter, because I think it obviously will have a tremendous effect coming from the mayor. But I think if you could add your signatures to it, I think it would have double the power if it came from the council and the mayor as a whole. So that's all that I have tonight. Thank you.
Can I make just a comment on what you commented on? I would definitely want one of those bricks. My great uncle, if I can do a little shout out, Lyle Tregaskis, who passed away 2 years next month at the age of 99, was the first principal of Hillcrest Elementary. So we need a few of those bricks for his family. I think they would really appreciate that. Thank you for that offer.
There's not a chair outside the principal's office that we could give to Lene, is there?
I think they're shredded at this point, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So moved.
No, second.
Oh, second.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.